Hello, I'm Dr. Nora Bird, and welcome to Module 1. This is an introduction to the course. Our first interactive session will be on June 27th, and I hope that you will bring your questions, any questions that remain from this, either to this or to a forum that I will have up, a discussion board that says questions about the course, and I will try and monitor that as much as possible. So this, as you probably have figured out by now, the course is divided into modules, and each module will have either an interactive section or a tape slideshow, pretty much like this. It will include a discussion board or activities, and this one includes an activity which I would suggest you do at the end of viewing these slides, and that activity is a short ungraded quiz, and you'll see more about that as we go along. So welcome, and on to Module 1. So I have an agenda for tonight for this session, and I'm going to introduce myself and also recommend that you introduce yourselves through the discussion board that I have set up. I'm going to talk about the student learning outcomes for this particular course and how we're going to get to those through modules and assignments. So I graduated from library school 32 years ago. Actually, it's going to be 33. And my degree is called a Master of Science in Library and Information Science. It was from Simmons College, which is in Boston, and I worked at several schools in Boston as a chemistry, what they call a selector. We'll figure out what a selector is as we go along. And I worked in general science and technology areas, especially in the community college. I was a technology specialist, and also I did social science and business topics as well in a small liberal arts college. So please post on the discussion board and read your classmates' posts, and sign up for a group. That's how you're going to get to know each other. So student learning outcomes. I'm going to just be silent for a minute while you read these. We're going to go through them one by one. One thing that I will say is that every library starts with a collection, or every thing that we do surrounding a keeping and preserving information is around a collection of that material, and it's knowing what's in that collection and how you shape that collection to serve the people that you work for. That is the basis of this course. So what is a collection, and why do I use the phrase information organizations? Why not just say libraries? Because increasingly librarian skills, assigning metadata, figuring out what goes into a collection, how to manage a collection, those skills that we teach in this program are being recognized in different kinds of organizations. When I say collections, think broadly to museum collections, collections of items for sale, artifacts for a publisher, uh, you know, any of those are collections, and some of the things that we do to organize them and collect them and organize them are broadly applicable. So I want you to always keep in mind that there are other materials that might be collected, preserved, etc. So we are going to talk about this process from the start of a collection, which is identifying what goes into it or what is already in it, okay, to selecting what is in it. So either adding to it or selecting a collection from the very beginning. I've never been at the beginning of a library, but it's a very exciting process to think, okay, what exactly goes into this library? The acquisition of that material, how do you buy it? How do you make it available? If you don't buy it, how do you make people aware that it exists and that it's there for use? So those are the main things that those constitute selection. And then we're not going to talk too much about organization and preparation. We'll talk a little bit about storage. We are not going to talk very much in this course about interpretation, but we are going to talk about how we how we make a collection accessible to people. How do we show people that we have this collection? It's not enough to just make it, put things together and have it. When I ask you on the discussion board if you have a collection of your own, that's all well and good. You know, I think at heart most people who want to be in library and information studies really like having a collection of some kind, but that's not the real purpose. We have to be able to share it with people, and so one of the assignments that you have is to make a plan for how you're going to share the collection with other people. And utilization is again about bringing people to the collection, and dissemination. Utilization is about the person, how they utilize that material, and also figuring out whether people are utilizing that material. Does it still belong in your collection if it's not being utilized? And so we'll spend a lot of time at the end of this class talking about something called deselection, or in library land we call it weeding the collection, as if the collection were a garden. And actually I do like that metaphor for a collection. So I want you to demonstrate an understanding of the life cycle of recorded knowledge. We're going to talk about different disciplines, different academic disciplines, but you can also think about it in terms of what is the shelf life of fiction. You know, those fantastic novels that are, very exciting, and everybody's reading right now. How long are those going to last on your shelves? But we're going to think about it in terms of the academic world, because that's so deeply ingrained in what our purpose has been in the past. So we're going to talk about what is recorded knowledge. And I'm going to take a little time to uh, dig into this. Um, so we think immediately of books as being the main purveyor of recorded knowledge. Um, but I want you to think broadly. Um, so if you are looking for materials about chemistry, and I did this search on worldcat.org, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And I found different formats of material. They are all recorded knowledge. So let's take a look at some of these descriptions. First of all, here's a list of all the different formats that I could have looked at. So you can see there's articles, which are primarily journal articles, but are also chapters of books. A smaller subset of those are downloadable. There's books. Notice that it's not only just so partially this is about something called format, and we're going to dig into this more deeply next week, but there is format, and then there's something that we call genre and this is different from the literary word genre. It's basically the way the knowledge is put together and what its purpose is. So you can talk about something that's called a book, and we recognize it when it's in paper between covers. We recognize it when it's when it's in print. We recognize it when it's when it's an ebook. We recognize it when it's large print. We recognize it when it's in Braille or different languages. So we recognize something called the genre of a book because it has a beginning and an end. It has usually has chapters. It has an introduction. It has often has an index. Now there are different forms of books even, but think about that sort of general form called a book, and we're going to use for that word we're going to substitute form for genre, okay, because the format is different. There's a genre of stuff that they call archival material, and we'll see an example of that. There are records in here for encyclopedia articles. There are records in here for journals, not journal articles like in the where it says articles, but the full journal itself. And we'll talk more about what these forms look like a little bit next week. I want you to just think about these different things. So here's here's music that came up under the keyword chemistry, and obviously this is a musical group, so whether this actually has any content that's about chemistry is the subject for a different class. But you can see this is a musical CD. This is the genre of this is audio. This is a book, and you can tell it's in print because it says that very clearly, but you can also tell by I thought it would have the number of pages here. But that looks like a print book, but this, I should have printed out the entire a record, so that we could see that it has a certain number of pages, that it's not, you can't connect to it in any particular way. So this is a print book. This is a DVD. It's a DVD video about chemistry. It's from the Just the Facts Learning series. It's for high school students, because you can kind of tell that because one of the subject headings is chemistry juvenile films. It was created in 2013 or sort of around that. That's why there's brackets around the date. This is a journal. Again, not just a single article. We also in libraries use the word periodical to describe this. It's published in London by the Royal Society of Chemistry. This is a game. And I don't really know if it's about chemistry. I couldn't quite figure it out from the description. One of the things we'll notice as we go through this course is that what the keywords that describe materials don't necessarily tell you what they're about, and the records that we have, especially for past materials, are very sketchy. They don't have a lot of description in them. We're getting better. Some of you who have taken LIS 640 probably know that there's a movement in libraries called Resource RDA, and that is a movement to put a lot more information in a record for the materials that we describe. Okay, so back to our purpose for this course. So another learning outcome that we're hoping to achieve is to show that you can create a collection management policy as a library. If you read the group assignment that you're going to be creating a small library in your group, and you're going to figure out what the collection policy for that library should be. And you're going to demonstrate that you can follow a collection policy by choosing materials to describe in what I call a bibliography. And be able to justify why you are selecting. Remember that wheel that I showed you? Selecting, identifying, selecting, acquiring, and deselecting these materials. Evaluate, critique, and organize a collection of materials. This is the bibliography that I'm talking about. This is much more important today. It always was important, but in a world where people are talking about alternative facts, being able to justify why we have certain materials in our collections, and giving some context to that is very, very important. The authority of the information that libraries have is very important. So part of the working in group process, and I know that people don't like working in groups, but employers tell us that you need to be able to do this, and you need to be able to do it in a professional way that shows collaboration. You need to be able to present yourself in a professional way, and you need to be able to participate deeply. If you think you can go through this course without participating deeply in this group process, then I hope that you will drop it immediately as soon as you hear this slide. It will be part of your grade for you to evaluate your group members. So each group member will evaluate the other members of your group, and if you don't show these professional attitudes, then your group grade will be affected. And also just doing the individual part of your group. That's extremely important. So this is the book. It's available. The major book will be this Collection Management Basics. I will be posting a few chapters from this other book, but it is a very good one. So if you can interlibrary loan it, or you have it in the library you work in, or you can find a copy, it is a really good one. So here's how you print a section of the ebook. If you want to print out sections, you can print pages and say that you want to print chapter 3. And that's also a way that you can have the PDFs if you don't want to print it in paper form. So there's assignments that includes participation. Participation may include pop quizzes, group work in the discussions. Since half of the classes are going to be asynchronous, you will have participation assignments that are linked to the asynchronous classes. So that might be a discussion board, or it might be an ungraded quiz. Okay, so it will be graded in the fact that you that you're doing it or not doing it will be part of your participation, but it's not going to be like a timed quiz or anything like that. And you can, take it with the slides wide open. All I want to know, I want to sort of check to see that you've watched the slideshows and that you've understood some of what I've talked about there. The other participation is signing up for a meeting with me. I have found that this is a very important way for me as a faculty member to learn who's in my class. And so I say 30 minutes here, but it can be as little as 15 minutes. It can be on the phone. We can do WebEx. You have your own WebEx accounts. I don't know if you know that, but I can come to your WebEx or you can come to mine. We can figure it out. But just a short communication with me separate from the class. Discussion boards. Discussion boards correspond to the asynchronous modules. You are expected to post twice for full credit, an original post and a response to another student. If you don't respond to another student, it's a discussion board. You need to know what other people are thinking about that particular topic. So if you don't respond to another student, you only get half credit. There are these short writing assignments. I want you to dig into the literature, or you can do an outside webinar. You can do an observation of a library. You can write a review of a book. There are 3 of these. Unfortunately, in the summer, there's not too many professional meetings going on. And plus, in 5 weeks, you don't have enough time to do that, but that would have been an option if we weren't doing this quickie summer class. Here's the project. Okay, you're going to form a group, and you're going to think of that group as being a library. At some point, I'm going to ask you to name that group the name of a library. If you don't find a group that matches what you're interested in, please let me know, and we'll see what we can do about that, about building a different group than I've put here. You're going to put together a collection plan. This is going to be very simple at first. You're going to figure out what this library is and who it serves. And each group member is going to select a topic or a genre, if it's a literary genre, or a section that you're going to build a page about. Where is that page going to be built? It can be built as a website. It can be built as a LibGuide. Let me know that you want that. And again, this is probably going to generate the most questions, and we'll talk about that in the interactive session on Tuesday. But you should be building towards that. Do the best you can, and if until then, and email me if you have questions. So each of you is going to build a separate collection of 20 items. It's going to have several different genres in it. You're going to describe each one of these books, and it's going to be an original annotation that tells me what the book is about and why it should be in the collection. Not the publisher's description. I don't care about that. You're going to justify the that item in the collection by showing that it has been properly reviewed or vetted in some way. So, let's say you want to include a website as part of your collection. So you might say that another library has this in their collection, or it might be something that's described, has a record on WorldCat, or it might be something on another school's LibGuide, or a public library's LibGuide, or so it there has to be either a review or some other authoritative group like a library saying this is good material. You could do that for books as well if you can't find a review. You might say, this book has not been reviewed and you'd better look because I'm going to check. This book has not been reviewed, but it is in the collection of Duke University Library, or it's in the collection of New York Public Library in the case of public library type materials. And you're going to, if you read a review, you need to cite the review in some way. The collection must include at least 2 books, 2 subscription journals, the journal, not a particular article, a database, and 15 other sources from all of these different kinds of things. YouTube videos, listservs, database, podcasts, websites, other libguides. Here's how I'm going to score it. And then you're going to do 3 different things as a group. You're going to organize the collection in a way that it's useful to people. And by people we mean me at the moment, but try to think of it as being oriented towards that group that you're serving. Okay, so description of the group is very important. Group that you're serving with this library is very important. You're going to outline some activities. I have the wrong date on here. I'm sorry. Copy and pasted this. You're going to talk about how you're going to build relationships with the people that you're serving. And you'll write a 5-year plan for the collection that you're building, and that's partially a that collection management policy that we'll talk more about. Where will you do it? You can do it as a website, and you have access to Google Sites because you have UNCG credentials. If somebody's familiar with using WordPress, that might be an option. PB Wiki, you can use LibGuide. And if you have not taken a class with me, just make sure that you're using the right LibGuide site that I have access to. So I will be, so let me know if you want to use libguides, and I'll make sure you have the right credentials. So the project is the most important assignment, but remember it has an individual component and the group pieces. You have to collaborate with each other throughout the whole project, but the your main assessment is on the individual part. So you have complete control over all of the SWAs, the short writing assignments. You have control over your participation grade. You have control over part B of the project. I have this set up as modules. This isn't the right page. And so I have for module 1 a quiz, and again, it's an ungraded quiz, but completing it is part of your participation grade. Okay, well, thanks for listening to me, and I'm sorry to start with an asynchronous class, but that's the way the schedule ran. And I look forward to meeting you in the synchronous session on Tuesday the 27th. And it should be an exciting 5 weeks. Again, email me is the best way to get a hold of me. Calling is not very effective because I'm often out of the office. So please send me an email, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And take care.